I'm Harvey Hubbell. This is Show and Tell. Welcome. And today we're talking to Stephanie Mitchell. Right? Did I get that right?
Good morning. Yes.
I have bad phonological processing. Stephanie, who are you and what do you do?
I am an educational consultant and I work exclusively with students with learning disabilities um, on high school and college placement and post-secondary planning.
That's awesome. Just LD kids. You don't work with.
Correct. So my foundation and my introduction to this world was through working at a school for kids with learning differences, and becoming the director of college placement and transition at that school. And when I finally went off to do my own thing as an educational consultant, I actually initially thought like, hey, this process is pretty similar for most students. I could help anyone. And the more I started, branching off and helping kids in other schools, I realized this is my life work. This is my passion. And so I've only working with kids with different learning challenges, as well as social challenges and ADHD.
I love it. Thank you for that. Hey, what school did you start off at?
It's called Winston Preparatory School,
All
and they
right.
have multiple locations. So I started in the New York on the New York campus, and then I actually had the privilege of helping to start their second school in Connecticut.
Nice. Nice. So you call it. We're talking. There's learning difference and learning disabilities. Did you ever see the movie Dyslexia, the movie which we made?
I have not. I would love to see that. So that one I need to find. But yeah, this is a hot topic, right?
Yeah. Well, we're gonna make
What
sure you.
what
We're
which
gonna make sure you watch
terminology
that. But
we
yeah,
use?
the terminology. Well, I mean, when I was a kid, it was one thing, and then it's something else, and we talk about that in that film. That's why I brought that up. Besides, it was a plug for one of our old movies. But so tell me, from your heart of hearts, learning disabilities, learning difference. You're talking to these kids. You know their parents. You know the school thing. What is it? Learning disabilities or learning differences?
So, as a parent of children with learning differences and including dyslexia, and as an advocate and an educator, I personally prefer learning differences because we know that it is not a disability, right? We know that these children with the correct instruction can learn many, many things. However, in my work in helping to place kids, particularly in post secondary settings, specifically college, I oftentimes interchange with the term disability because that's the terminology that's used on college campuses. So if our students are not comfortable and familiar with that terminology, um, that transition to college and finding the correct resources can be a little bit more challenging. For example, a lot of the offices that give students, approved students for accommodations, are called disability service offices, because they're looking at students with all different kinds of disabilities, not just learning differences. Um, so that's just the reality of the next step that they're going to.
Oh, no, I love that. That you put it very good. In our film, well, see, I can't park in a disabled parking area. Nor do they let me get on the airplane early. Although I've done it once because the plane was very late, and when the disabled people got up, one dyslexic got on the plane that time. But uh, the in our in the old film Dyslexia, we talk about actually an educator talked about it. Learning disabilities, learning difference, and she says, well, it's a learning difference until you get to about fourth grade, and then we've disabled you. If we haven't taught you how to read and write, and that's our job, and now you're falling behind grade level, the system has disabled you. And I know that sometimes that's a rough thing. It depends on you know if the skills are there with the schools and everybody's aware of it. Uh, but yeah, I mean,
In fact, one of my own children was in that exact situation. That even with a solid IEP and educational plan and a mother who knew what to look for and was advocating voraciously for him. He ended third grade barely able to read and write. And then we found the Southport School, which literally changed his life.
Tell me how the Southport School changed his life. So, wait a minute. How old was he when he went in, and tell me about that.
So he went, sorry, it was the end of second grade. So at the end of second grade, we realized I needed to do something, right, to help him because the system wasn't working. And we found the Southport School. This is when I still worked in an educational environment for students with learning differences. So I was very familiar with a lot of other schools. And we went to look at the Southport School, and that was really our only option. But thank God, because it's designed specifically for him and his learning profile. And the transformation was dramatic and almost immediate. So I'll never forget two fun stories from that experience. Is first, we went for this. So this was a kid who hid, basically. He was left for dead in the classroom. He would sit, wherever he was sitting, there were words everywhere in his public school classroom, which he couldn't read. He would sit and, they would be writing at this point and writing stories based on pictures, and he would scribble. So I'd get this work home and it all had scribbles on it. So it looked like he was doing something, but he wasn't doing anything really productive. And anytime an adult came to the door, he'd be like, "Are you here to take me, like, get me out of this classroom?" Right? So when we went to the Southport School, and I was at my first parent conferences, I was sitting in his tutorial class, which is where they get Orton Gillingham based instruction in decoding and encoding. And his teacher was telling me how Christopher keeps raising his hand to read in class. And to the point that she had to kind of say, "We have to give somebody else an opportunity." And so I stopped the conversation and I introduced myself again and I said, "This is the mom. I'm this kid's mom." And she's like, "Yeah, I know. I'm talking about your child." And I couldn't believe it. So that was, somewhere around November. And then in December, he all of a sudden decided he had to be an actor. And so I had to find a way for him to do that. And we found an amazing theater program. And he went for the audition, and they handed him the script. And he came home, and I was, starting to, okay, what are we going to have to do to help him learn the script? And he read the script. I couldn't get over it. So it was designed for children, but he read the script. So it was, and that was just in the first 4 months of school. Given the right tools, given the right instruction, the transformation was pretty dramatic.
That's why parents want to talk to you, because because you're not only a professional in that, but you're a mama too. So
It really tends to be an asset. I don't myself have learning differences, so I can't know exactly what that experience is like for my children. I have a brother who's also dyslexic, but for parents especially, and even for the students that I work with, I think that I'm a parent, that I'm, living in this world every day, walking the walk. I actually happen to have an 8th grader planning high school and 11th grader planning college. So I'm literally walking in their shoes right now. I think it's something that they really do like having that, that I have that firsthand experience.
In full disclosure, you're going to be on a panel with us from the Southport School, and by the time people watch this, I think that's going to already happen. So, so I love the fact that you're talking about Southport School because you're a mom and you know how that makes a difference. So,
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
and the lecture series that the CoLab School, Southport School does, is important for the community, and even when you're saying right now. So it's all like we all kind of give back. I mean, I was that kid in kindergarten. I was that kid in first grade. So we all give back because we all show up a little piece of the puzzle, and we all keep putting pieces of the puzzle together on there. So that's pretty darn amazing when you get your kid in the right place and all of a sudden there's a transformation and you see that happen.
It's
So,
absolutely.
no, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, and it's not just the academic preparation, right? It's, I think, one of the greatest things was, first of all, watching confidence blossom, right? And a sense of self and identity, positive sense of self and identity, but also the self esteem, the confidence to try new things that, wherever in the classroom and outside of the classroom. But I think most importantly, and it's something that I work really hard with my work, is that understanding of themselves as learners, as people in a community and in a world, and their incredible strengths. And when we're talking about, in my line of work, talking about transition to post-secondary settings and beyond, it's always from a strengths-based perspective, right? So we're not focused on learning disabilities. Rather, what are the strengths that come with them or that are innate in the student, so that we can build upon those. We also have to know what the learning disabilities are so that they can advocate appropriately for themselves in any setting. But that empowering students to really understand themselves from this strengths-based perspective is transformational.
Well, you're 100% right. I mean, you work on their strengths. You understand the weaknesses, and you work on the weaknesses and you fix that. So what you just said is you have a kid who couldn't read, and then he goes up on stage and shows off what he could read, that he could read the script, and that I mean that see that's the test. That's the proof of it right there, and that's the self-esteem. He feels so good about it. That's
Right.
amazing. That's really
Exactly.
amazing. That's kudos to the Southport School. Kudos to you, mom. Kudos to your son for doing it. So that's life changing. So you know the walk you walk the walk and talk the talk. So about sending your kids off to, my kids in high school. I want them to go to college. A kid wants to go to college. Finding the right college. I mean, this is not an easy thing, and you got a family to do it. So, talk to us a little bit about that, because I'm sure a lot of parents are going to want to, they're going to be calling you 1-800 up and just saying, "Help me."
Yeah, so it's really a process, and I think again, it kind of is centered on and anchored on this um, understanding and acceptance of who the student is. That's kind of where the entire process goes from. And of course, when we're looking at colleges or other, that sometimes non-traditional settings, it's always we're always looking at their interests and things like that, but we have to start from a place of understanding and acceptance so that we can get them aligned with the most appropriate programs. So a lot of that, of what I do, is that sort of education, that sort of help with um, accepting those pathways and knowing that I truly believe you can get an excellent education from almost anywhere. It's what the student puts into it, the relationships they build, the community engagement, but they have to understand what is going to work best for them. And do they need to be in a school that has a comprehensive learning support program embedded within, so that they have an adult on campus that they work with regularly? Or is that something that they can get some guidance with externally? Or they'll do just fine with accommodations, and they're great self advocates, so maybe they can get the help that they need by talking with professors and going to tutoring sessions. So it's about identifying that and understanding where they are, and then helping them look at schools that would be a nice fit for them, for their specific needs.
So you're really bringing a lot of stuff in. It's you've said it's not just the academics. It's the environmental piece, the psychological piece, how the kid's going to feel in a place, of course, because it's the love connection that you're finding. What's their passion? What's their career that they want to do? How are they going to succeed with the best educators? right?
Exactly.
So talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm a farmer. I'm a farmer. Talk to us about fertile ground. Talk to us planting the seed. It's springtime.
Yeah, so I mean that's exactly what it is. So for my process, I actually start, I do everything more traditional college consultant would do in terms of, creating a list and strategy and essays and all of that. But I start by really getting to understand the student on paper. So through all the documentation, I will have a really good understanding of how they function in the classroom, of where their academic and cognitive strengths and areas of challenge are. And then I build this relationship with the student and the parents to understand where they are in this process and where they are in their understanding, and their hopes and dreams, right? And then we kind of work systematically through looking at specific programs really in depth. So I have them do really in depth research. Then we come back and talk about it, and it just kind of empower them to go through the process. For a lot of my students, this is because they've had so many adults advocating for them through school. They've had, most of them IEPs and things like that. They have not often been in the driver's seat, right, of their educational planning. And what is really critically important for them to know, and is for their parents to know, it's not just all these planning pieces, but also understanding how the laws change when you get to college. That your IEP and your 504 that you have in high school graduate with, I always tell them they graduate with you when you finish high school. So those documents are no longer applicable to a college environment. So they need to understand that, and then also understand what colleges can and cannot do to support them in college. The laws change. So, and then we also have to look at environment, right? It's almost a 180 from a highly structured high school environment to a highly unstructured college environment, right? So understanding, what does planning look like in that environment? What kind of things are you going to need to have your days structured or help you structure your days when no one's going to be around to tell you, hey, you got to get up and go to class, or it might be a good idea to do that reading for your class tomorrow, and start now so you're not starting at 10 o'clock at night, or whatever the circumstances might be.
So do you? I guess for each kid, it's all uniquely different. So you have executive function components that you do or you don't, depending on what you think the kid is. Now, when do parents call you? End of sophomore year, beginning of junior year? Is it too early? When's it too early? I mean, if you told me, I wish you were around when I was a kid. You should have just told me to knock it off when I was in kindergarten and straighten up and fly right. You know,
Well, yeah, that doesn't always work. It's more like walking alongside together and figuring it out together. But you know, in the state of Connecticut, transition planning in a public school setting has to start at age 14. Okay, that's by law. So I think that's kind of a nice age. Generally, parents are calling me at some point in the junior year. And then I have, on either side. So I have, a family I'm working with that's in the 8th grade right now. I have a ninth grader, a few 10th graders, and then, a lot of 11th graders. And then I do sometimes get the, we're in trouble. We don't know what we're going to do at the end of junior or beginning of senior year, which is usually a much more challenging, situation. So I would say the sweet spot is probably end of sophomore, beginning of junior year. That way we have time to sort of systematically and in step by step build this process, because again it's about the academics, but it's also about the skills that the students are going to need to solidify in order to be successful in the college setting. And if there are some skills that they still are struggling with, an assessment of whether or not those things can be supported through accommodations or even technology. So if we can start a little bit earlier, it gives us time to do that. And we're not doing that with regular meetings. I meet regularly with juniors, especially in the second half of the year. But it can be a couple meetings a year initially, quarterly sophomore year, and then kind of increase it so that we start with understanding your learning profile, understanding what the college environment looks like, understanding what your strengths and particularly interests are. A lot of students who have been struggling in school often aren't totally sure what their interests are. They haven't always dared to dream, right? And investigate things because they're working so hard to be successful. So it's, starting earlier gives me the ability to help them build and develop some of those aspects that we always do them, but they're a little bit more concentrated when we have to do that simultaneously with the college search and the components involving that.
That's it's pretty remarkable. It's you're taking them by the hand and you're walking through. Now you said you've done some non-LD in the beginning. How do you still have non-LD kids?
No, no. In fact, I never did.
Oh, never did.
I That was kind of my original thought, and then I would all of a sudden one day I was like, why would I do that? This is literally, everything I know and love. I feel so passionate about this work. And the irony of the whole thing is I started this before I had kids. So thank goodness, right, that I ended up in a special education learning environment, so that I was empowered once I had my own children, and I'm literally in it right now with them. So having this firsthand experience after 15 or so years doing this work has been truly remarkable.
But you grew up, and your brother was LD, um, so you're aware of LD, and the thing is there was sometimes there's in families and different cultures there's still this shame of people they're figuring if they can't read. I mean, listen, talking is a natural thing. You and I are talking. I don't know. We learned it because we observed. We listened. Writing, reading, a little bit different. We talk about this all the time. So people tend to feel like, oh, if my kid's not measuring up, we're going to just sweep it under the carpet. We're not going to talk about it. So what you're saying, and the world's changed, not a lot, but a little bit. It's moving. So now families in their sophomore year, and they're thinking like, oh, hey, my kid just processes differently. I don't know. She might grow up to be the next Bill Gates, the next Tesla, the next Musk, the next Thomas Edison, or any one of these folks. So I mean, getting involved and thinking, and what I hear you talking about is you're getting the kid picturing themselves walking around in a college campus, waking themselves up on time. So you're beginning to, and in your sophomore year and your junior year, these are some of these same kids, as you know, have been told in first grade and third grade and fourth grade to work harder, and you're never going to amount to much because you're not working hard. And we know they're working hard.
Right. Right. And that's the other thing that I, really have been enlightened to, I think, especially in my time at the Southport School, are these sort of superpowers that come with um, these areas of difficulty, that oftentimes it's offset by, some incredible strengths like creativity. My younger son will sometimes say something, will be talking about something that I've talked about a million times, and his perspective on it and his approach to it is so out of the box and so unique and so on target that it like causes me to stop for a second, and I just go, gosh, how do we continue to help you build on this and see that as such a strength, and that and an asset that not everybody has, right? We Not all of us are really good out of the box thinkers. That's a huge strength, and it's really hard sometimes for students to see that and applaud that in themselves when they can, they have to live every day um, with reminders of what's hard for them. right?
only because
Especially in
we've
the
beaten
world and
yeah only because we've beaten it out
yeah,
of them. In the outside world, I mean, good parenting accepts it. Great schooling like Collab and Southport School accept it. So you and I know. See, I like you because you're a futurist. You are a futurist because you're sending kids
true.
like down the linear path into the future into jobs that they don't know they're going to have. Like when I was in high school, I knew I wanted to be a TSA agent because I just like looking at people's suitcases. I just like opening them up, looking around, bossing people around. That's my jam. But and they didn't have TSA in those days. But so you're trying to figure out, an internet influencer. What? I mean, who's going to know
Right.
these these jobs and all the technical jobs? And when you're talking about STEM, when you're talking or STEM, and science, math, and technology, and you have to know how to read. But you've also said it. You're instilled in self confidence. So, literally, as a futurist who's investing in our nation in the future, taking these kids that might go off in a different track, the school to prison pipeline, you keep them on the school to school pipeline and following their passion and following their superpower. And that's to be applauded. And I can see parents just loving, having the first meeting with you and watching their kid transform, their kiddos.
It's so fun, and especially with teenagers, right? Like, generally in the first meeting, they're kind of like, "Ugh, who's this lady?" And oh my gosh, how long is this going to take? Like, I have other things I'd rather be doing. And oftentimes, for the first time when they're talking with me, I'm one of the first people who have ever spoken to them directly, honestly and concretely about what I understand about them and in depth about who I understand them to be on paper at least. And it kind of takes them aback and their parents. And by the second meeting, you know, um, even my most ADHD boys are like, uh-huh, okay, and what should I do next? And then okay, I'll do it. And they do it because they have this advocate that, but I'm not taking over, right? So I empower them and give them the tools, and I, give them the in-depth thinking, and I give them, questions that they should consider asking on visits and things like that. But then I step back, right? And it's up to them to do it. And I love this work with students, especially college bound students, because again, they come from this environment where they have, all these people sort of advocating for them, including their parents. When they get to college or the workforce, parents are now obsolete, right? Colleges don't pick up the phone to parents calling, wondering if their student's going to class or if they're performing, or that's not a thing, right? It's actually against the confidentiality laws. So this is preparation for that reality, that they're working with me. I'm outside of that initial bubble that they've been accustomed to, and slowly but surely getting them ready to do that work on their own. And I love it. I just feel it's so empowering and so exciting to watch
No,
the transformation.
you take them to the next level. I am bummed that we're running out of time here, and I could talk to you more, and I'm going to talk to you, but the time space continuum. This is playing after you and I have already hung out on the community lecture series from Collab. So and you will have seen the film by then. So I have two questions. Hey, what did you think about the
I've,
film? Did you like the film?
oh my
Hopeville,
gosh, I
Hopeville.
love Hopeville. I absolutely loved the film. And I think one of the things I love the most about the film and your approach to this subject is, not only having this concrete example of Waterbury and, following the kids through the year and hearing these talented and passionate educators, but you do what I really attempt to do all the time, which is taking a sometimes scary and complex topic and making it accessible to everyone, right? Not all parents are experts in dyslexia. Not all parents really understand these things, so the way that you're able to bring it to a level that you kind of pare down the complexity to help educate others is a beautiful thing. So thank you for
Thank,
that.
thank you. And we're not just dyslexics. We're talking about everybody's second language learners and poverty and all kinds of stuff of how you know this education business isn't an easy thing. That these kids and getting these kids up to grade level. This isn't just easy stuff. So I appreciate all the hard work you do, and certainly the Southport School. So what else? We've talked about a lot of stuff, but sadly we're running out of time. What do we need to talk about that we haven't talked about so far, Stephanie?
I think we covered most of it. Yeah, I don't know that we left anything uncovered. I think
So
this is a good.
how do parents find you? There's you have a website and
Yep, the name of my business is Grapevine Educational Consulting, and so my website it's long, but it at least translates grapevineeducationalconsulting.com. And parents can read about me and the work that I do, my approach and philosophy, but as well as connect with me directly. I also have the fortune to be an affiliate with the Bertram Group, which is another consulting firm where I, work with them to provide, a service for kids that have, variety of learning differences. So I feel very fortunate to be aligned with them and the professional affiliations that I work with.
well, I think we're fortunate to have you out there, and all these families are fortunate to have you. At the end of one chapter and beginning the next chapter, and you kind of guide them through. So, thank you for all the work you do. Good.
Thank you. Yeah, I love to do it. I'm going to hang out here a little bit longer.
All right, my
I'm not
friend.
done yet.
So you're not done yet. So there's plenty more parents who are going to be buzzing you. You're going to make more friends with more kids and turn them into fine, young, outstanding citizens of the great United States of America or elsewhere. All
I
right.
hope so.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much for your time. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. We'll see you soon.